Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you'll just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about how to maintain emotional intimacy for both partners when you've been together a long time.
Keyword being intimacy. And this is a topic that we know is really drawing a lot of you in. And we're going to focus in today's episode on emotional intimacy, which is a huge component to being able to have better physical intimacy. And we will do an episode next week on physical intimacy specifically.
And as we've talked about before, so a little bit of summary from previous episodes, the goal of marriage is to be together a long time while maintaining high marital satisfaction.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's a term that's used in psychology, so you might feel like marital satisfaction. It's like, oh, that's kind of a odd term.
You're fulfilled. You're happy.
Yeah. So satisfaction level, right? And one of the main aspects of having high satisfaction is maintaining emotional connection and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And now we want to talk about this from both partners' perspectives. We'll break this down into a male, female, because emotional connection and intimacy is obviously different for both people. I also think it's different for each of those people and their personalities on different seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something you always have to have your pulse on, and by pulse, probably communicating and understanding about each other, because all of us are going to go through this fight against normality, if you will. So you're going to lose focus on the emotional intimacy and connection part, in a sense, because you focus on responsibilities and tasks, and then you have, becoming parents and all that comes with it. You wake up and you go to, I'm not trying to paint, a gray picture here, but you wake up and you go to sleep with the same person every day.
For years and years.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And we say it that way because what happens is your brain knows how they're going to respond, how they're going to react, how they're going to behave. Certain conversations they might get triggered by their sort of normal default emotional state when they wake up.
Their
and
mood.
So,
Mm-hmm.
your brain learns, right? That's the whole point. It learns so it can predict. And the funny thing about marriage is that your brain starts to learn and predict about your partner, and that's good in the sense that you have certainty and security and trust, and you can count on your partner, but it goes against the emotional connection and intimacy piece, because then your subconscious just takes over, and it's pretty much like
I already know who this person is.
They're my partner is again. Yeah. I don't have to ask as many questions. If I bring this up, they're probably going to respond this way.
Haven't we talked about everything?
And I can even tell in the inflection in my voice. I'm making it sound negative, but you have to understand that this is what your brain is built for with everything in your life. There was a personal development seminar we did a number of years ago. The term was called tranquilized obviousness. Mm-hmm. And if you think about this in a different context, and because I lived in Hawaii actually for a year prior to knowing you, right? And people think, oh, I go to Hawaii, it's paradise. I could live here forever. Mm-hmm. No, you can't, because the ocean and the sounds, and I learned how to surf, and it's so beautiful.
Mood.
And at some point, months in, because I was there for a year, it's just where you live. Mm-hmm. Like what was once a paradise is now just
an average day,
something else, right? And so this is just how our brains operate. So it's not a thing about marriage. It's just about how your brain learns, how it decides who you are and in this environment, who your partner is, also you can predict and look out for changes. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? So it might seem like I'm having a long intro here, but that's what you're in a sense up against. You have to be intentional about the emotional connection and the intimacy, because it's in a way just against the normal predicting routine adult kind of life that most of us live.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, we want to cover some of the unique differences we see between men and women, yes, and in a sense, it's really probably more on the personality traits, but
Definitely
as data
differences.
shows,
Mhm.
men tend to have a certain mix of personality traits than women do. So when people say men versus women, you could also just say it's really just the mix of personality traits. One way to think of it, right? So Jocelyn's going to give her perspective. I'm going to give my perspective. So that you could ultimately just take away, all right, yeah, the point of this episode. How do we maintain emotional intimacy for both of us when it might be different the longer we're together?
I also just want to add a little bit of context myself before we jump into the meat of the material, that you talked about satisfaction. And I think that even more specifically, when you are emotionally close, which that's the way I would just summarize what is emotional intimacy. Intimacy is closeness.
Mm-hmm.
You can handle anything as a couple. There is nothing that could come up in your lives that could take you down and get in between you two if you are emotionally connected. Because it gives you that mentality and that feeling of we're on the same team. We've got each other's backs. We can go to each other for support, for being able to open up, right? It's just that real, like that bond and that just safety. I've got my person here, right? And with my person, we can overcome and handle anything that life throws at us.
This is going to be interesting as we get into this because I track everything you say, safety
Mhm.
and security. And if you think of someone's book like Esther Perel, Mating in Captivity, that's almost an enemy of passion because passion is really driven on like adventure,
Mhm.
newness, uncertainty. It's, the more certainty and trust and security you have, the stronger your relationship, but then you kind of lose the passion part. So
Yeah.
it's quite the balance.
It is. I mean, marriage really is finding the sweet spot and like oscillating between, like you said, like security, comfort, and then also excitement, passion. Let's mix things up, right? Because you want both. And in some seasons, you want more than the other. So that's why communicating about these things is so important, because what Aaron and I would talk about, because we check in often on how we feel about our sense of intimacy, both physical and emotional. And the reason that we do is because what we might have shared a month ago or 3 months ago might not apply to right now, because it is evolving. Life is, constantly kind of just balancing and going in between those worlds. And so we're going to jump in here now to how men versus women describe emotional intimacy. And this will be really interesting. And it comes from thousands of well-documented sessions, as well as just conversations with a lot of men and women, and even our own experiences. Then we will also outline some specific ways to think about maintaining emotional intimacy, especially the longer that you're together, to combat all of those things that Aaron described. Now, as we go into this, you're going to be thinking, yep, resonate with that. Yes, yes, yes. And you're going to want to do something about it. You're going to feel at the end of this episode like, yes, like you're describing exactly what I want in our relationship. And I don't know exactly how to do it. Like I'm seeing the concept, but how do you do it consistently? And that consistency really is key, because this isn't just about having one great date night or one nice week together. We want you to feel this consistently because it's about building that momentum. And for that reason, as you're listening, what I want you to do is type into your browser this URL, mycoupleschallenge.com/best. Now, what is this? This is our special edition 30-day couples challenge called The Best of Us. This is not open every single month, right? This is a special edition challenge. It was actually only supposed to be open for January.
Mm-hmm.
We had all the plans in the world to wait until next January, 2026, to reopen it, but we kept getting messages. I don't want to wait a year, Freemans. That seems so far. And we thought about it and we were like, all right, we will open it up temporarily, but it won't be reopened again for another at least 5 or 6 months. So this isn't going to be available all the time. This challenge is about intimacy, both emotional and physical. Completely different prompts than our other challenges. It's fun. It's reigniting the spark. It's about feeling just that energy between you two, like really feeling some more playfulness, more joy in your interactions. So again, as you're listening to this episode, you're going to want to implement this. So go to mycouplschallenge.com/best and get signed up for this special challenge.
Well, it's starting on April 1st of 2025. This episode is coming out March 25th. So basically you have a week before it starts.
Yep.
And we would love to have you in there. It's really one of the best challenges that we have.
I think it's my favorite.
3 of them now.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is that space to reignite that spark. I mean, so many of us are in that category. So we look forward to seeing you in there.
Yeah.
So now let's dive into the rest of this episode, really about what does maintaining intimacy look like for both people. So why don't I give you the floor first from your own experience and the conversations you have with women specifically.
Yep.
What are the things now? Obviously, it depends on the season, but what are the ways that women are really looking for maintaining emotional connection and intimacy?
Yeah. And like I said, not only from sessions, but I get together with girlfriends often and, we'll do little check-ins of how you feeling in your partnership, right? Not gossip, just truly sharing with each other. And these are the words that we use, right? So I'm going to break it down. Now, quick disclaimer, whenever we're describing things like this is how men say it, this is how women say it, it doesn't mean that both partners can feel the same way, right? Like we don't fit in a box. You can't describe every woman in the world and every man in the world. There are variations. These are just themes, okay? And you can absolutely resonate with both, but these are very common themes, like we said. So, first one is it would sound something like this for women. I want him to meet me where I'm at. Meet me where I'm at emotionally. Be attuned to how I'm feeling and what might feel supportive. So what do we mean by that? Because it is a very common phrase. Because I've said it myself, my friends have said it, and clients. Meet me where I'm at. This means you please don't expect me to always be 100% joyful or 100% on, or that I always have to be the strong one or always in a positive state. I need space to feel vulnerable, to feel insecure, to feel lost, to feel anxious, to feel afraid, to feel overwhelmed, and that there's space for that. That yes, I'm superwoman, but I also need you to be my superman, right? And to kind of hold that steady ground when I don't feel steady. I mean, these are verbatim some of the ways that especially my friends and I have said it to each other. And so what that provides for us, like when you, Erin, meet me where I'm at and you are attuned to me, meaning you're paying attention to the cues, you may be noticing if my face, my body language, my tone seems anxious or stressed, whatever it might be, that you're not expecting me to be in a different state, you can kind of just be with that for a minute, even acknowledge it, and then offer me a supportive response. What that does for me and really women is it allows us to relax. It allows us to, I don't use this phrase often, but in a sense, like be in our feminine and feel held. Again, we can't always be strong. Like I'm a strong, powerful woman. And there's times that I just need you to like metaphorically, energetically hold me. And you know what happens is when my emotion is embraced and it's okay, it really dissipates pretty quickly, right? So that is a really common thing that women will say. It's a big turn on, I'll tell you that. Like it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel like that's my man, you got me.
Maybe not right in the moment, but eventually.
The recurring pattern of being emotionally attuned is a big turn on. And the opposite is true. It's a big, big turn off when you aren't attuned and you're not meeting me where I'm at emotionally. Should I keep going to the next one?
I guess we'll go back and forth just to mix it up for the listeners. So I'll do one for the men here. And since we're kind of using kind of fun analogies, I suppose. For some reason, I was thinking about the Joker and Batman.
Okay.
So for men, the phrase being, why so serious?
Mm.
And so that was from Batman 2,
Mm-hmm.
where, he kept on asking that question. So for all the men, I think they know why so serious. Why I chose that, because that's kind of the question I feel that men will internalize, and then eventually when, we're a little bit more frustrated, why is it so serious? Why does it got to feel so heavy? So the other side of this is that what they're really wanting, and we'll kind of summarize how I see emotional intimacy really being different between the two
Mm-hmm.
at the end. So it might seem funny. Why is that emotionally intimate for men? But we just want to feel more laughter and more fun experiences. And I would say just kind of noting that we're looking for more on the experience side.
Mm.
I guess I feel like kind of giving the answer away, where it might end up feeling like of what Jocelyn gives for women, that can be more conversational based. Men don't always want to talk a lot or at all. And so I'll be getting to that, but this why so serious is kind of just a feeling of this just needs to be lighter. It just feels so serious all the time. And I'm just wanting like more fun experiences between the
Mhm.
two of us.
Like, just are you saying that even us just going and doing something fun makes you feel connected to me?
Right now, you're giving my last point away.
Okay.
So right now I'm just saying within the home environment.
Okay, home
I
environment.
can't just come home and have you ask me questions about what I did, what I didn't do. It's just always
Task
about growth.
oriented.
It's
Yeah.
like I just need. It might sound like it's a break. I need a break. I
Ooh.
just need it to be more fun and light in at home here.
Yeah. And again, we're not saying women don't feel that as well. We're just sharing themes, okay? So the second one for women that again is a way that we feel emotional intimacy is present is when you, my partner, seem engaged and interested. It's kind of like having that same effort that was present in the honeymoon stage. When we're dating, you're trying to get me to like you, you're engaged in the conversation, you're asking questions, your eyes are with me. That same interest to us, it reads as you're still excited to see me. You still want to talk to me, right? That you're not just complacent with me. You don't just kind of take me for granted. I want to still feel special. That's a word that women use often, right? I
Mhm.
still want to feel special to you and not like I'm just someone you got handled. You got me locked in. I want to feel as though when we're talking, you're there, not just physically, you're mentally there, you're engaged, you're interested. Now,
Mhm.
we're not at all saying this is 100% of the time. Remember, marriage is a long game, and there are going to be times that we're tired and that we're checking out, or, we are going to have more functional based conversations. None of this is saying that 100% of the time you need to be having emotion based conversations. We're just saying that at some point in your days and in your weeks, there's got to be moments for this engaged and interested and emotionally based conversations.
Mhm.
So that to the second one that I'm describing is really like an energy. If we're at dinner and you're just kind of like, "So, yeah, how's things been at work?" It's like number 1, you don't sound excited. You don't actually sound that interested. It kind of sounds mechanical. And that makes us just not feel as special or loved.
Mm. Let me give my second one here for men then as well. And as I'm saying these, I know it sounds like they can conflict.
Mm.
And if you think of it in terms of them being at the same time, then yes, they might conflict, but they don't have to. You just understand the timing and you're giving your partner what they need for this emotional intimacy and connection just at different times.
Yeah.
So my second one is if I was to ask, a male partner, what do you need?
Or what would make
Without
you
any
feel
other
connected?
context, what do you need right now? They might just say, top level, I need less conflict or criticism.
Mm.
But the positive side of that would be we're actually looking for more peace, more harmony, and let's say letting things go.
Mm.
So I know mine are also kind of similar in nature, where the first one is about more laughter, more fun experiences in the home, in the day to day. There's a lightness. And now I'm not wanting so many conversations about what I need to fix, what I need to do differently. And even if it is feedback, even if it is something, let's say I've given my word to, I've agreed to, I'm going to do this. It's just that it can come across as criticism. It's not enough. I got it. Why do I have to hear about this every day? It's too much. Get off my back.
Oh
So
wow, that's harsh.
that's kind of the hole that you get in, right? Because I don't think men are going to necessarily say this right when they feel it,
Mm-hmm.
because many are not as proactive in their communication. So, and we also feel like, oh, I can deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no problem, no problem. But eventually it gets to this place where it builds up, and it does feel like, dude, get off my back already. Like, I
Mm.
just can't take the criticism. And it might not actually be criticism.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's other dynamics to this. But essentially, men are looking for just more peace, harmony. Let's let things go. Let's kind of be more relaxed with one another.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd say just having more grace for not having to have every single thing done perfectly 100% of the time.
I think what you just described is Aaron like depicts that, right? The whole like get off my back. Like he's not trying to depict that women are on the guys' backs, right? Like not trying to
Hmm.
paint this negative picture. Again, it's just about how the experience can feel, especially I think we have to remember that in a marriage, especially the longer we're together, what really can happen is you are giving each other so much more feedback and not balancing it with the positive, the appreciation, the just lighthearted, the
Or
thanks
just
for
even
that,
nothing.
or just nothing, right?
Yeah.
It can be so like start to vocalize so much more of the negative, and that's what can build up into that experience. Okay, the third one for women is I want you to share with me how you're really doing. Don't just give me surface level answers because yeah, we want to know how's that going at work or kind of give me the updates. But what makes us feel that emotional intimacy is present is that I know how you're actually doing. Don't tell me work's okay when actually you're really stressed about it or you're
Mhm.
feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling as though you're not meeting your boss's standards and that, weighs on you or you really wish you were achieving more and you're kind of beating yourself up about that. We want to know more of your internal experience. I think that's a big theme you're probably extracting from hearing the answers for women is we want to know more of the internal world, not just a description of the outside things.
Mhm.
And so,
And probably
yeah.
even more so when it is driven by our sharing, not you having to ask about it.
Yeah, of totally. Like when you just spontaneously open up to me and you tell me something that's on your mind. Like I think the other day, last week, we were driving to pick up our daughter and you just started to open up to me about some things you were thinking about and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this. It
Mm,
makes me feel like you wanted to talk to me."
mm.
And that really excited me and I was interested and I felt like I was understanding more of
Mm.
yeah, your internal world.
And that's what connection is.
Yeah. And so I think one thing I'll just share with this piece is that for us women, like we don't want to expect men to share the same way that we would. I
Hmm.
was with girlfriends at one of our get togethers and we were laughing about the funny differences in men versus women, even catching up with friends, right? Like with women, we will cover, oh my gosh, 5 topics in our lives. We'll go deep. We'll be like, wait, tell me how you feel in that. Tell me more. We will go so deep and talk a lot about the feelings. And then men, oh, this was actually at your birthday, but we were at dinner
Mm.
and talking to the guys, and the guys were like, oh, yeah, we'll just be like, hey, you good? And the guys are like, yeah, we're good. Yeah. And that's kind of it. Now, we're not
I
trying
mean,
to,
not my friends.
right. I'm not trying to overly simplify men. That's a very simplistic view. But there is a difference in how men share how they're doing versus women do.
I would say it this way. It's that men want to be able to share on their own terms.
Okay.
And so long, because I run a small men's group. I've been doing it for a few months now too, and the intention is there, the relationships are there. So men do need, between each other and friends, you do need a level of camaraderie and trust and relatability,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're more open to sharing more about yourself. Obviously, we're keeping this about the marriage, but in a sense, since we're talking about friends, I want someone to, ask how I'm doing, but more or less say, "Hey, do you want to like share any more about that?" And I want, most men want to be able to say, "No, like I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just kind of want to say that, one thing I'm focusing on is this." So we don't necessarily always want to go deep or to share, but if a friend is kind of present to like what I have going on and just asks, "Hey, like how are you doing?" And hey, just you want to say any more about that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think I'm good right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's just more to me like that, at least, the groups that I'm in.
Yeah. I think that, and again, these are just like themes. It
Hmm.
does not describe every male or every female in the world. So, Aaron, for you, what is the third one that you wrote down for men then?
So I know my theme has similarities for each of these 3 points I'm giving, but this last one being to initiate spontaneous interactions or activities. And really, it's different from the first one in that I need some lightness and I need some fun within our routine day to day life. But this one is about I would like you to lead and initiate some spontaneous interactions or activities for us kind of beyond the routine, beyond the normal.
Okay. So, planning something to go out and do that's different.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I would also say there's some in which it would be nice to have you initiate something that I also do by myself.
Okay.
That's not necessarily for both of us to do.
So I have a question on that then. When I, suggest from time to time, hey, like, we've been working really hard. Why don't you go, and do X, Y, or Z? Like, for example, going to one of those biohacking
Mm.
places. I don't specifically plan it for you, but does me suggesting that do something for you?
Yeah, you could say, hey, I know there's been a lot going on, and Saturday, there's a window of time like 12 to 3. Why don't you do something for yourself? You could
Mm-hmm.
do, cold plunge, or I know some other friends of ours have said to their male partners, hey, would you like to go golf, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, I know some of these guys are going to do this event.
Yeah.
So, something like that. It can be a balance of the activity between me and you as partners. It can be me solo. It could also be like, hey, I talked to some of, well, maybe less this, but hey, some of your friends are doing this. Do you want to do that also, with them?
So I have a question because this episode is about feeling
Hmm.
emotional intimacy is present,
I know I was going to tie this together. Yeah.
and you're saying that it's somewhat, yeah, maybe planning some spontaneous or fun activities for us together from time to time, but also ones for you individually. How does you doing something individually
Yeah.
without me make you feel close to me?
Because it shows me that you've been paying attention,
Mm.
that you care. You might say that it's emotional attunement. I don't know that any male would necessarily say that, but it's that there's been conversations, you've been paying attention enough to know, and you know me well enough that even if I don't take it for myself, because a lot of men don't take the time for themselves, that you see the importance of me doing something for myself to refill my own cup.
Mm.
Just shows that you really are caring.
Okay.
So when I thought about all these themes, there kind of seemed to be, as I mentioned earlier, a level of conflicting between the two. So I just think some of the takeaways on both sides for men and women would be to think of it in these kind of three sort of themes. To maintain a level of emotional connection and intimacy, especially the longer you're together, you need this balance. Okay, you need a balance between number one, togetherness and separateness.
Mhm.
You need a balance of conversations versus like physical experiences. And then you also need a balance of talking and not talking, just being with each other, like physical proximity. I've talked to a number of men that feel close just by being present, being at home. Maybe it's a movie, maybe you have a hot tub, maybe you have a pool. The two of you are doing activity. There's no other distractions. There's no phones. If you can, like the kids aren't around, maybe they're asleep. And the two of you are just doing something, but you don't have to necessarily talk. Sometimes men just, I don't need to say anything. I've already heard enough. I don't want to share. And I do think there's a lot for men in just being with each other, fully present. We don't have to necessarily be talking.
I think what you just outlined is really so key to just explore as a couple. Do we balance togetherness and separateness? Do we find space for conversations versus experiences? Do we balance talking versus just being with each other? And remember, right, that in marriage, it's not that we're expecting to have deep conversations every night after work. That's not going to be realistic. Some days you're zapped. Some days you don't have anything to share. And so it's not about thinking about every day or every interaction in any of the ways that we described. It's about zooming out and looking at the bigger whole. Are we making space for both? For laughing together and just being silly and going to do something really lighthearted because that brings out more of our childlike spirit and it feels more flirty with each other. And then also, are we going deep and are we talking about how we're really feeling in life? And so not necessarily that it's going to be 50-50 balance, but that there's harmony in it, right?
Well, and so let me kind of close out the men's side this way too. Most of mine, at least today, felt like it was more separateness than, well, no, not exactly.
Because experiences.
Yeah, experiences, just being together. But sometimes the needs for men can feel more like the separateness rather than togetherness. And maybe that is for that particular partner at that time. However, my invitation to men is, well, what are you doing to then focus on the needs or building the emotional connection for your partner? It can't just be about, well, what I need is this separateness. And then that's all you're focused on. It's like, okay, get that. Then your partner probably needs more attunement. They want to hear more about what your emotional experiences and your overall life experience is. So you're going to have to create the togetherness in the conversation.
Yeah.
You don't just get to take separateness and then that's it. And you're like on your own doing your own thing.
Yeah. So the whole point of this episode is that it provides you with some talking points that you two can discuss in this season right now. What is going to move the needle for each of us to feel as though emotional intimacy is present? Because again, emotional intimacy is a huge component of satisfaction and the whole reason that you're romantic partners and not just roommates. Really think about that, right? You don't want to just be functioning together. You want there to still be a sense of, man, this is my person that I'm in love with, and they are my romantic partner. And I think a theme, to bring it back around to something I said earlier, is that when you focus on these things and you check in on, hey, do we have a harmony between, laughter and joy and flirting and going deep and really talking about how we're doing, is what it does is it brings out the best in each other. And if you think about the early days in a relationship, because I know we all loved the honeymoon stage, right? It's a very exciting, special time. But the longer that we're together, what can happen from all the things Aaron described in the first section of the episode is that you start to bring out more of the worst in each other. And then that's all you see and focus on, right? And then you're like, man, my partner seems like a grump, or where's the fun, lighthearted version of them, right? We used to laugh so much together and have these great conversations. Well, what we need to do is shift the momentum to bring out the best in each other. And so use these talking points to explore what you each want and need more of. Again, if you want real specific ways to implement this, then sign up for the Best of Us 30-Day Couples Challenge, because we're going to provide you with prompts for all of this, for emotional intimacy, for physical intimacy, for being able to connect in different ways. And you know what's a cool outcome from it? is that by the end of the 30 days, you'll even have more awareness of what moves the needle for you. You'll be able to say, actually, you know what? My favorite prompts were based on blank and blank. And then the partner's like, oh, actually, and for me, these are the ones that moved the needle for me. So it's going to give you even more insight into what makes the biggest difference for you to feel that sense of intimacy. So again, go to mycoupleschallenge.com/best. As we said, it will not be open for another 5 or 6 months. It's not available every month. So make sure you take advantage. It is really my favorite challenge of them all. So it's worth it. You're going to feel that spark. You're going to feel connection and joy and more playfulness and just positivity in your interactions with each other. So we're redoing it. We always want a little fun, little spark in our Erin's smiling right now. But we really hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it opens up some great conversations between you two, because remember, you got to check in on these things often. And it's important. So with that, if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can hear past and future episodes. And if you've been a listener of at least one episode, please give us 5 stars on whichever platform you're listening on. That really helps us reach even more people. And we will talk to you on the next episode.